Hey, welcome to Box Office Buddies. On this channel, I review movies with a buddy. That's right, so every week I'm going to be watching a movie with someone different and reviewing it. This week's buddy, my friend JB here.
Hello.
And we are going to be reviewing Beauty and the Beast. So, yeah, I'll start by leading the floor to my guest. What'd you think?
I guess just to go over it generally and overall, the film was okay. It was okay, but you kind of want more than that from an epic, and that kind of has to do with the fact that I grew up with the original, so there's a huge nostalgia factor. There's the fact that the original, in my humble opinion, really did get it right. And this film, it borrows heavily from it, and so all of the elements are there to make it work, but it didn't do it properly, so that it kind of fell flat in a way that the original did.
Underwhelming could be a word you might want to use there.
Underwhelming?
Yeah, I would say it was mediocre. It wasn't a terrible movie or anything, but it was far from great. It will not, I don't think, be remembered as a classic in future years like the original was. You mentioned how you grew up with the original and loved it. 1991 Beauty and the Beast, first animated movie ever to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. And yeah, there's a reason why. It is an excellent movie. It's part of my big three in the Disney movies. Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin. Those are the old school Disney movies that are my favorite. Yeah. So obviously comparing it really missed the mark as far as how I feel in pretty much every category.
That's where it's tough, because like there were moments where I did feel something. I did emote something, okay? And so the question then becomes, was that the success of the film, or is that just the nostalgia kicking in?
Right.
Because yeah, it's so mixed up that I can only say that at best it was okay, and there were clearly times when it was not okay.
Right.
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. There were some parts where, like, when comparing to the original, it really fell flat. There's such a lack of emotion and impact for me. I thought that was just not there.
And that's because it wasn't executed well on I think every level you want a film to be executed well. So visually
Let's talk about visually.
Yeah. So visually it was kind of boring.
Boring, and also just so, like, almost dizzying. There was so much going on with the cameras, and like it was too much.
It was kind of a reference to the ballroom scene in the original,
right?
Where the camera. But I mean, there's a reason for that, and it's an inspired moment. There's a reason why the camera is behaving that way, and it's not just because how do we make this Broadway play seem more fun and lively and action-packed, because it's just a bunch of people walking around singing songs, you know? And they couldn't quite succeed at doing that with even a relatively good cast, I suppose. Well cast, it's just that they weren't used in a way that was effective, like you said, and didn't have any real impact. And part of that was the visuals. Part of that was the way that they filmed it, how they chose to frame their shots, and at other times how they chose to, like, sometimes it just felt boring, and sometimes you're too overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much going on sometimes. Yeah, you mentioned cast. Look, I thought Emma Watson did a fine job. She did not do anything poorly. You're a big Emma Watson fan, so I know, you know it.
For all the right reasons, by the way. I assure you.
But yeah, I thought she did a good job as an actress. I can't fault her for much. You know,
you can't fault any of the cast.
And that's what I was kind of gonna say. Like, I thought Gaston was probably my favorite cast character. He looked the part, I thought, and he did a good job of acting Gaston-like. You know, yeah, they were all well cast. It's just they were I would say poorly directed. There was no way to really use them to their full potential the way you can with a cartoon movie.
Right. Yeah, we were kind of commenting on that a little bit, right? How a cartoon can't translate particularly well to a film unless you go for something very stylistically, you know, all eggs in one basket. And this film just, it meandered about between the cartoony and the realist sort of take on
it didn't take an identity of like,
that's right,
like cartoon-like or very realistic, and it just kind of went between the two, the objects, like Lumiere and Cogsworth and
the clutter.
oh my goodness, they do not look good. They really they went for realism, and I thought it really took away from the look of those characters.
And you can tell though that a lot of skill, a lot of effort went into it. It's just that it didn't translate well on film because your eyes are too distracted, and especially because it's all CGI, and that's those. We were talking before about how it's kind of like boring the way the camera moves because it's just people walking around. But the CGI, when it kicks in, that's when things start to go really, really fast. But these characters are so there's so much detail that you're visually overwhelmed, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so design-wise, I saw what they were going for, and it looked good when everything was just staying still. But then when everything started to move around, it was just tough. It was just tough to keep up.
Yeah, for sure. This gay character that people seem to be complaining about. Look, it's not a big deal. There's nothing particularly, heavy-handed about it. It's not, it's not definitely not graphic. You know, there's nothing obvious even. When I watched the original, I almost thought the character was more gay. You know, but it was in a fun way, you know, the way he was just like this undying affection for Gaston, and it was just like this huge man crush type of thing that's going on. Yeah. And in this one, I thought not the fact that he's gay, but the way they used him was maybe a bit of a miss.
Right. Well, I mean, the point of the character is to be something of a comic relief, even though Gaston is hilarious anyway. But he's meant to be sort of like this very cartoony, light character. But like we were saying before, they didn't navigate the line between cartoony and realist very well. And so LeFou was so underplayed that he didn't have the impact that he otherwise could have had. He's supposed to be cartoony.
That's a really good point. I love that you said that because underplayed is a really good word for how they used him. He's so over the top, and he's kind of the butt of a lot of the slapstick jokes, and you don't really see any of that in this. He's more taken seriously, and
yeah, you're right. There's very little slapstick actually.
Yeah.
For a kids movie, that's rare.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm comparing to the original, but we got to talk about the music in this. The songs that we have in the original, they're classics. You know, people listen to them still now, and they're just such good songs. They redid them in this movie, not the same impact in my opinion. Not as well done, not as exciting to listen to.
Right. I mean, we were talking about how it carries over all of the pieces of the original, but on each level it doesn't do it very well. And again, the score, just like the visuals, just like the dialogue and everything.
Yeah.
There was almost too much, and in very inappropriate areas that affected the pacing very badly.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. And then they added some new songs to this one, and those are a real miss. You
can't play with nostalgia like that. You can't. You're drawing on nostalgia to create an emotional impact, but then you use something new and unfamiliar that doesn't necessarily carry that weight, that emotional weight, and so it just cuts it.
Well, that's the thing. If it had carried emotional weight, and if they had been really well-written songs, you know, they had got, maybe used a bit more budget, I don't know, but invested a bit more into the quality of new music, fine. You know, but the fact that they're not memorable songs, and they take away from what we're seeing and what we're feeling, it was a really big flaw in the movie, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, particularly since, you know, a lot of the movie is the music.
Yeah.
There's a lot of songs in this, you know. And that means that it's a lot of walking and a lot of spinning cameras.
Yeah, and then I also asked myself this question, you know, I tried at least. What if I were watching this movie and had never seen the original, what would I think of the movie? And even if I take out the comparison factor, which will make me like the movie less, I think even just watching it for the first time, it wouldn't be a movie that I would want to particularly see again. Yeah, there was nothing special about it.
Yeah, it was relatively boring in the stuff that it added, and that made me feel like maybe the times where I was getting something out of it, that it was probably more the nostalgia factor, so it was my bias instead of critiquing this as an independent film, its own work.
Yeah.
And so I have a tough time really getting into it because of how often it just takes me out of it with the boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were in a sold out cinema.
It's definitely going to make money.
Yeah, this movie's gonna make $100 billion.
No matter how much we critique it.
Yeah,
how much we value our own opinions.
Yeah, exactly. We could say it's the worst movie in the world. This, like, every critic could say it's the worst. It's gonna make a ton of cash. It was full, but that's the thing. There wasn't much reaction. No one around us was crying. There weren't big laughs at any point.
Yeah, it was a lot of sporadic giggling.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
it made me laugh a few times.
Right,
a little
but I noticed
like
you would laugh and I wouldn't laugh. We was never really together, and it was the same with the people around me. You know,
there was some applause.
Oh,
the credits came
at
up.
the end, that was the most unanimous response. It was slightly more than sporadic applause, but it definitely wasn't. You didn't hear a roar of applause.
It wasn't enthusiastic or anything, but
enthusiastic.
But you had maybe a quarter of the room going, yay!
Yeah, and I'm sure for a lot of people, they're really going to like it.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, we can maybe recommend it and maybe
So let me ask you this. Scale 1 to 10, what do you give it?
I'd give it something like a 6.
Okay. That's fair. I'd give it like a 5. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a bad movie.
No. And not in any regard was it terrible. It made mistakes, but it wasn't terrible.
Exactly. It's like a 5. It was an okay movie. It was what it was. Anything else to add, or?
Don't pay to watch it.
Okay, there you go. It's a rental.
No, that's paying.
Oh,
wait for Netflix because it's a bundle, right?
There you go. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks a lot for talking to me, seeing the movie with me, and reviewing it, and being my first guest on Box Office Buddies.
Yes, it was an honor. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Subscribe to the channel, do all those internet things that I'm not an expert on, and we'll see you next week.